Hello everyone and welcome. Let's take a look at the biggest headlines from across the United States and around the world covering politics, society, and the stories shaping our democracy. But before we begin, a quick request: if you believe in supporting honest and independent journalism, please hit the like button and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get started. U.S. and Iran exchange strikes for second day as Trump declares ceasefire. Over tensions in the Middle East escalated for a second straight day as the United States and Iran exchanged fresh military strikes. The renewed violence came after President Donald Trump declared that the ceasefire was over, raising fears of a broader regional conflict. Both sides reported military operations, while world leaders urged restraint and called for an immediate return to diplomacy. The latest escalation has sparked concerns over regional security, global oil markets, and the risk of further military confrontation. U.S. forces strike approximately 90 targets in Iran during latest military operation. The U.S. military carried out strikes on approximately 90 targets across Iran during its latest operation, according to American officials. The coordinated attacks reportedly targeted military infrastructure, missile sites, and other strategic locations following escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. U.S. officials said the operation was intended to weaken Iran's military capabilities and protect American forces in the region. Iran has condemned the strikes, while global leaders continue urging restraint to prevent a wider regional conflict. Graham Plattner drops out of Maine's Senate race. Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner has officially suspended his campaign in Maine, clearing the way for state Democrats to select a new nominee. Plattner stepped aside after facing misconduct allegations, which he denies. His withdrawal significantly reshapes one of the most competitive Senate races in the country, as Democrats move quickly to name a replacement before the filing deadline to challenge Republican Senator Susan Collins in November. Defense scrambles ahead of explosive testimony from suspect's ex-lover. Defense attorneys are preparing for what could become the most dramatic moment in the case, as the suspect's former romantic partner is expected to deliver key testimony in court. Prosecutors believe the witness could provide crucial details about the suspect's behavior, relationship history, and possible motive before the alleged crime. The defense is attempting to limit parts of the testimony, arguing that some statements may be unfairly prejudicial. The judge is expected to rule on the disputed evidence before the testimony begins, making it a critical stage in the high-profile case. Patrick Dempsey says he won't run for U.S. Senate in Maine. Actor Patrick Dempsey, best known for his role in Grey's Anatomy, has announced that he will not run for the U.S. Senate in Maine. The speculation followed the withdrawal of Democratic candidate Graham Plattner, but Dempsey said he has no plans to enter politics. His decision leaves Maine Democrats searching for a new candidate ahead of the upcoming Senate election, as the race remains one of the most closely watched contests in the country. ICE shooting in Texas sparks major protests. Large protests erupted after an ICE officer fatally shot a Mexican motorist during an enforcement operation in Texas community. Leaders are demanding transparency while federal authorities continue investigating the incident. Demonstrators gathered peacefully in several locations, calling for accountability and additional information. Officials say the investigation remains active and more details will be released after investigators complete their review of the evidence. More than 30 injured after Maryland transit bus crashes into building. More than 30 people were injured after a Maryland transit bus crashed into a building near Baltimore, according to local authorities. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, treating passengers and transporting several victims to nearby hospitals. Officials said multiple injuries were reported, though none are believed to be life-threatening at this time. Investigators are working to determine what caused the crash, while the damaged area remains closed as the investigation continues. Trump ends NATO summit on a positive note despite earlier clashes. President Donald Trump wrapped up the NATO summit on a surprisingly positive note after earlier criticizing allies over Iran, Spain, and Greenland. Despite sharp disagreements at the start, Trump later praised the alliance, saying there was a lot of love and tremendous unity among NATO leaders. The summit concluded with renewed commitments to collective defense and stronger support for Ukraine, easing concerns about divisions within the alliance. Judge orders release of Trump's $5 million payment to E. Jean Carroll. A federal judge has ordered the release of the $5 million that President Donald Trump deposited during his appeal in the E. Jean Carroll civil case. The ruling follows the conclusion of the legal process after Trump lost the defamation and sexual abuse lawsuit. The payment will now be transferred to Carroll, marking another major development in one of the most closely watched legal battles involving the president. 2026 Emmy nominations officially announced. The Television Academy has announced the nominees for the 2026 Emmy Awards. Several returning hit dramas, comedies, and streaming series earned major nominations, while a few fan favorites were left off the list. Industry experts say this year's competition is expected to be one of the closest in recent years as awards season officially begins. Severe weather threat continues across parts of America. Forecasters are warning that severe storms, heavy rainfall, and flash flooding could continue affecting several parts of the United States. Emergency officials are urging residents in vulnerable areas to stay alert and monitor local weather updates. Power outages, travel delays, and localized flooding remain possible as dangerous weather conditions move across multiple states. Trump says Iran's ceasefire is over after Iranian attacks prompt major U.S. response. President Donald Trump declared that the ceasefire with Iran is over after new Iranian attacks triggered a large-scale U.S. military response. Trump said the United States would take decisive action to protect American forces and interests in the region. The renewed exchange has sharply increased tensions, raising concerns about further escalation in the Middle East. U.S. officials continue to monitor the situation as military and diplomatic developments unfold. Erica Kirk files major court motion, demands full transparency in murder case. Erica Kirk, the widow of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, has filed a new court motion demanding that all evidence presented during the preliminary hearing be shown publicly in the courtroom. She argues that victims' families have the right to fully see and understand the evidence, warning that hidden exhibits could fuel speculation and conspiracy theories. The motion also asks the judge to republish evidence that was admitted earlier but was not displayed to those attending the hearing. Sen. Roger Marshall calls us strikes on Iran a mop-up operation. U.S. Senator Roger Marshall has described the recent American military strikes on Iran as a mop-up operation, saying the mission was aimed at eliminating remaining threats following earlier attacks. Marshall defended the operation as necessary to protect U.S. forces and national security interests in the region. His remarks come as tensions between the United States and Iran remain high, with lawmakers continuing to debate the scope and future of U.S. military involvement in the Middle East.